This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
City to city, coast to coast, around the world. This is the 21.5 Show, a podcast for professional pilots by professional pilots. Hello, I'm professional pilot number one, Dylan, representing the business aviation side of the house, joined by my friend Maxwell. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Maxwell.
Coming to you from a hotel room. Actually, I haven't recorded from a hotel room in some time.
Oh, let me look at the screen here for our premium subscribers who get the video feed. Let me see.
Go ahead. What is it?
I'm calling.
This is a hard one.
That's popcorn ceiling. I'm calling Doubletree.
But you already knew I went to the free happy hour, so that
Doubletree.
You already know.
No, Embassy Suites. It's got to be an Embassy Suites.
Obviously.
Max, you were staring into the abyss right now. You online. We talked in previous episodes about influencers and they're showing their workouts and their watches and their cars, and they never talk about what it's like to be on the grind. What's really happening?
These influences and they're unreal. Yeah. Oh yeah, just had a quick layover, just banged out a workout at the gym. What gym? Where?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Get out of here. Put your shirt back on. Shut up.
Give us a rundown of like give us the real rundown today.
You want to know? You want to know what this is really like? Is that what you want?
You can't handle the truth.
Today was like, you know how those guys spin it is like the best day ever. This wasn't like the worst day ever, but this is just like this is below average.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Okay, so I had a 5:55 a.m. van in Norfolk, Virginia. So that is 3:55 a.m. So I
Phoenix
woke up
time,
at 3 a.m. today.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
For me, but whatever. The unfortunate part was that was from Norfolk, Virginia to Midway, which was... So it wasn't too bad getting in. It was just really windy and like the ceilings weren't that low, or it was fine. And then, but you could see the storm coming from the north. And I was like, oh God, we're never getting out of here. So we land and then just starts snowing, and it starts snowing harder and harder.
Oh,
and
okay. Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
It snows in Chicago.
Yeah.
Newsflash.
Keep going.
It's crazy. And so it's nothing spectacular, dude. It's just like, it just snows, and then we're like in line for the de-ice, and then they go on I'm like, wow, people are still landing. And then it's a ground stop, and then it drops below mins, but we're getting hammered, and we got all the de-ice. This is the first time I've de-iced this season. It's like,
dude, remember we set the over-under bet on the day that you would first de-ice. That's what I was excited about. Now I got to go figure out what that was.
Yeah,
so keep telling the story.
That's right.
I got to go figure that out.
We just wait forever. It's like an hour to de-ice, and then we start running low on our min takeoff fuel. We got to get dispatched. It's like a loft, It's just a nightmare. It's just a lot of work. But we took off. I took some pictures for you. It was great. And so it was just a long day, and then we get to Tucson. I'm looking, I'm like, huh, it's really great when you fly right past your house to the overnight.
Yeah.
You're just like, come on. Like, what are we doing? That's it. Tucson, Embassy Suites. I don't know. What do you want from me?
Get down there, get ready, collect a couple of refreshments, and that's it. Okay, I found it. What do you think I set was the over-under for your first de-ice of the year?
I think it was like December at least.
It was December 3rd.
Oh. Well, dude, do you remember I told you my first time at American, my first winter ever at American Eagle? I was just telling the dude I'm flying with today too. That was such a learning experience. You fly around in Arizona, your whole time is flying, learning to fly, flight instructor. We get a little bit of actual time. We were like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then you go to Chicago and you just duke it out in a winter, flying in the Midwest and the East. Like we never went west. Remember, if we went to Omaha, that was like
the only Western.
That was like the West Coast. Yeah. Everything else was just all East and like Midwest. And we just
shout out
hammered.
to Evansville, Indiana. Have you been back?
No, I think Marquette, Michigan.
Unbelievable.
That was where things got real. Or what's that cherry capital of the world?
Traverse
Lacrosse?
City.
No, Traverse City. Lacrosse.
Traverse City's sick, actually, in the summer. That's sick.
But I know, in the summer, but not in the winter.
I have a great Traverse City story for you after this.
But things just got real. And I'll never forget, it was the day before Thanksgiving, which is often touted as the busiest travel day of the year, right?
Oh.
And it's similar today, but worse. Just this bomb went off of snow. And I remember we were flying the early leg in, and it was just like you couldn't see the runway. Everything was white. You just saw taxiway lights. And I remember everything had just ground to a halt. Like they were woefully unprepared it was like the first time it snowed. So the first time they fired up the de-ice truck, the whole thing. And I remember you couldn't even get a cell phone signal because it was all the towers were jammed up. I remember I walk up in the terminal and there was just more people than I've ever seen up there. I was like, oh my God, this is like the apocalypse of the airline terminals. And that's always stuck with me. And so I have like PTSD. I see this cloud coming. I'm like, oh, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. What are we doing? So
you made it. Okay.
Yeah, listen. Max and his first world problems. There's a lot of struggle over here,
That's the great thing.
Tough.
Who was I just telling that about the airlines the other day, why it's such a great experience? Because it's like, well, we're still going. Like, it doesn't matter we're still going. If it's legal, we're going. Like, that's good experience for you, just be like, oh,
it's so funny because like business aviation, we're like always checking the weather like the night before. Oh,
the boss.
The guy was handing the jet over today. He's going like to Baltimore, and there's this big system. It's kind of circling, and the western edge of it is over Chicago, and the eastern is like over the East Coast. And I'm like, is that big storm over Baltimore? He goes, I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't looked. I'm like, duh. Sorry, that was a dumb question. I'm sorry. I lost my composure out there. Sorry.
Talk to me when we're 15 minutes from the airport, and then we'll figure it out. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, then we quickly moved on to if I knew some captain that used to fly the A-10 that he was in pilot training with, is a great guy. The important stuff. So
exactly. All right. Well,
I go. Oh yeah, did you fly the Hog too? And he goes. And the other reason I know it's called that because I just listened to a podcast from an A-10 guy on Sean Ryan, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you fly the Hog too?" He goes, "No. What did you fly when you were in?" I'm like, "Oh no, I flew Gulfstreams, dude. I wasn't in the military."
You were in? Oh, you were in the 89th? Is it the 94th?
No, I'm colorblind. They would let me in there.
Speaking of somebody who flew the Hog, Max, I want to introduce a special guest. Stand by for just a second. This is a surprise for you.
I knew a couple guys in college. What?
All right. Breaking news. This is big.
Is it Ted?
No. Okay, you got to share
Ted
this
flew some Hogs back in the day.
Come share this mic with me.
Okay.
Okay, get real close. You got to get real close.
Oh, is this our...
this is our
house recorder player?
Yeah, we've got Gavin. You may know him as my oldest son who played the furlough flute music. Gavin and I have downloaded Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, the new flight sim.
Oh,
and I wanted Gavin to give a quick review for the listeners, just of his early thoughts.
Quickly, Gavin. Everybody is glued to their AirPods right now
Gav,
for this.
Go ahead.
It's great. I like it. All the stuff is good.
Now? Tell us a bit about the first couple days. What happened on the first day of launch?
It didn't work on the first day because everyone was trying to do it, but it works now. It might be a little bit.
What is your favorite airplane to fly, Gavin?
I like all of the airplanes. I don't
know.
No.
You need to give me your favorite.
The F-18 Super Hornet.
What?
No. What was the one you flew the Warthog? That was like one of your first airplanes you wanted to fly.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites too.
What about the Spruce Goose? I thought you were a flying boat guy.
Yeah, I did that one too.
What was the other flying boat you did?
The Dornier DOX, I think.
Yeah. That's got like how many props on it?
Like 12.
This is not the point of this, guys.
Yeah.
The point of us, Gavin, do you know what the point of getting this whole simulator set up is?
I don't know. What?
It's not for you to jack around and be skipping like a stone off of lakes and airplanes that don't actually fly like the Spruce Goose. It's for us to teach you the fundamentals of flight and then to see if you can do it in a real airplane.
Okay.
No, well, he's in.
You're in?
All right. Well, thank you for
excited?
the review.
Good review.
Yeah.
So overall, fun though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Overall,
recommend it.
good, he
Okay.
says. It's
All
all
right.
good.
All right.
Everything's good.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, Gavin.
So there you have it. Yeah, it was
You heard
crazy.
it here first. It was good.
It was so anticipated, and then the launch, and they Microsoft and whoever their team of developers figured out that they're like, well, instead of having to download all the game, we'll put a bunch of the game in the cloud, so that you don't have to install. Instead
What,
of
did you buy the disc? Nobody.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
nobody did. So you download it on your thing, but then you have to stream like part of the data from their servers. So on launch day, it just completely crashed because everybody installed part of the game, and then the rest of the game they're trying to stream. It was down for like a solid day. I mean, it was just a total disaster. And I think this is like maybe day 3 that it's been out, and we finally got it to work a little bit. And then we get the joystick and the pedals and everything, and the joystick is like inverted, so you pull up, it goes down. I mean, it took a lot of work to get this thing going. So. Anyways,
that's interesting. So when you play like a first-person shooter game,
yeah,
do you have to invert the look?
Yeah.
I think all pilots must do it. So when you pull back on the stick, it looks up, right? Because anything else is totally counterintuitive.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I'm old
sure
too. But yeah, no, I've always inverted those sticks to make it work. But anyways, it is cool on the Xbox. Yeah,
God, I've got so much to do when I get home.
I know we get a lot. There's a lot going on. So, anyways,
big weekend.
Big weekend. Anything else you want to share before we jump into book club, Max? I know it's a late night here, so we're going to try and get the party rolling.
No, that's it.
I keep forgetting you're in Tucson. I keep thinking you're on the East Coast, and it's a whole.
No, I'm in. I know. I went a rare East Coast visit this week. I don't like doing that.
It's such a bummer too because I'll be in Tucson tomorrow night all night. I just missed you by one night. We could have gone out.
And you know who's going to be here? Craig.
Oh,
yeah. Because I talked to him, he's like, "Oh, I'm in Tucson tomorrow. You should call him up."
I will. There's this place
Tomorrow's
in
Tucson. This is what I really like to do: Tucson, San Diego, Sacramento, Sacramento, Phoenix. Perfect.
I love it. All right, let's get on with the show. Lots to get to today. Book club. This one was close to home.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I think it was chapter 13. It's on our friends at Southwest. All about Herb.
Our boy Herb. Rest in peace.
That's right.
Would have liked to know that guy. Everybody always talks about when they met Herb and he gave him a big sloppy kiss.
Even in the book, they talk about that a couple times.
Men, women, yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah, he's just
cigarette breath, whiskey.
It said, I couldn't believe it. It said he smoked 4 packs a day.
I mean, have you ever heard? But like seriously, when you read this, have you ever heard of a company where the founder's like personality just
permeates
such
everything.
a personality for the company? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I was curious to talk about, your perspective. So I think for those of you that have read the chapter, you remember that they really go into detail describing Herb, his personality, basically how I think Bob Crandall said basically Southwest runs on Herb's bullshit, I guess, something like that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well,
I read that.
He goes, Bob Crandall said, that place, Baker would, no, it was Baker. Bob Crandall's principal operating aide in American says, that place, Baker would say, runs on Herb Kelleher's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was basically true. But I mean, earlier in the book, it talked about how Herb, who was in legal battles left and right to, even get the airline going. And then I think, it talks about how their strategy worked mostly because they focused on employees and the employees making people happy and having fun. And they really embraced it. And even though they didn't have some of the advantages that the other airlines had, like the computer systems and things like that, they had their quick 10-minute turns, and they had their ticket agents dressing up, and They had flight attendants doing their safety briefings to music, just all the fun things that folks, especially
that
if
still happen, which is
that
pretty
still
interesting.
happen. Yeah.
I don't know that it certainly isn't like the old days from what I understand, but it still is different. And what's interesting too is that right now, we have a problem at Southwest Airlines getting new airplanes. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah.
But the 737 is tough to come by these days, especially in any other model besides the Max 8. So
Right.
So we have to create more productivity out of the airplanes we have. So you know what we're focusing on right now? The turn.
9-minute turns.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's not
making.
nine. It's
Yeah,
not
we're
10
trying to
anymore.
make the turn more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like shaving minutes off the turn, because when you do as many legs as our airplanes do, minutes turn into hours and turn into extra flights, and then we're going to run red eyes and stuff like that. So, still scrappy, doing what we can with the cards we're dealt here to make things happen. So,
and at the end of the day, I think what Southwest had was employees that were taken care of and bought in and were motivated to make the airline succeed. And that was a big part of what Herb did. And I think that's why they were successful. If you just tell an employee, hey, we're going to cut our turn time in half and just crack the whip, it's like what Jim Lara said in the previous episode. It's like you have to earn followers. You can't just, manufacture followers, and being able to do that kind of stuff, you have to have people bought in to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite the story.
Yeah.
Proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. It's really cool. So I think it's a great chapter. I think some of the stuff you may already know, but does a really great summary of Southwest. And I think that's the big takeaway at the end of the chapter there is that, their eggs were in Herb's basket, right? So it was when he passed and when he was gone, they did have to struggle a little bit to find their identity. And maybe that continues. Maybe they've already solved that. I don't know. It's like an impossible situation. You're not going to duplicate that guy.
No. But what's interesting is that, the people that met him and knew him and worked with him, they do their best to carry on that legacy.
Yeah.
What will be interesting is when all the people that knew and worked with Herb are no longer here.
Yeah.
But I think they work, the airline has changed. It's tough to have that real underdog attitude when you are by far the biggest domestic carrier in the U.S. Like, you look at the airports we fly to, and you just see Southwest tails everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it is hard to maintain that kind of underdog, like, scrappy attitude. I think when you get to this critical mass where you then all of a sudden you are the biggest in your realm. But it is still different, and the culture lives on, and it's, still a good place to work. I dig it.
The other takeaway I had from that chapter, Max, was they talked a couple times about Southwest's aversion to debt.
Oh, yeah.
And, they mentioned, they deployed business school students to the airline many times to study their culture and how they had found success. But I mean, I think there was a lot, we've talked about in, like, it seems like every other chapter, where do they get this money? Where this funding, this crazy stuff, and all these CEOs pull all these shenanigans. And it seemed like Southwest took a much more conservative stance. It seemed like they avoided a lot of debt. And in the long run, I think that made a huge difference.
Well, dude, the fact that the airline had never had a losing quarter until COVID hit, where it was literally impossible to make money, is a testament to all of that strategy and everything. I mean, that's crazy in this business. When you read this book, you really understand how crazy that is.
Yeah.
But you want to hear an interesting story that I heard yesterday from the dude I'm flying with? He's like, yeah, so he was telling about when he was in the Marine Corps and the training squadron, or wherever he was at, like, the weather would go crappy, and they moved and did their training ops at Las Cruces. And he goes, do you know who Frank Borman is? I said, of course I know who Frank Borman is. He doesn't know that. Obviously, we're reading this or whatever. And he proceeds to tell me about how at that Las Cruces airport, Frank Borman had a hangar there. I guess he had after his airline stuff, he had gotten into the car business and had some car dealerships in that area or whatever. And so he lived in Las Cruces, and he had anyway, guy ended up going over to Frank Borman's hangar, who we all know from this book is, was not well liked. And, especially with the pilots, they butted heads quite a bit. And him and some of the other pilots walked over, and guy introduced himself. Yeah, I'm Frank Borman. Yeah, come on in, and got him a beer and showed him his P-51 that he had in there. He just got done flying and had nothing but really great things to say about Frank Borman. So
wow,
there was another side to old Frank.
Shout out to the P-51 crew.
Yeah,
dude.
Right.
Speaking of P-51s, I sent you a picture of this. I was at the Air Expo at Scottsdale a couple weeks ago, and they have a kit P-51, a 70% of a P-51 there with a Rotax engine and stuff. 2-place. That thing looks so sick. I sent you a picture of that, right?
Yeah, for $500,000.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say there's one little detail.
Airplanes are the worst. Every time, it's literally I think aviation is the worst hobby to ever have.
Would you like to? I'm going to give you this opportunity to vent if you want. If you'd rather not, if you have anything you'd like to leak out, Max, this would be a good time to do it.
I'm just in.
Drips.
I'm in airplane fuel leak hell right now. I have this leak on my airplane that I've just been ignoring for a little while, and it's gotten worse. So I have fuel leaking from the wing. So I finally have decided to. I'm trying to figure out what to do because it's it's the whole thing. The quick build, the serial number that my airplane is had these wings that part of the quick build kit was done in the Philippines, and they built the wing and they sealed the wet wing fuel tanks, right? And they assured the manufacturer, Murphy, that they had pressure tested all of these wings, of which clearly they did not. And so there's a range of leaky wings. So I knew this, and before the wings went on the airplane, the wings were on sawhorses, and we filled them up with fuel, and we let them sit for a week, and not a drop. Great, and resealed some portions of it with ProSeal that didn't look like they had done a great job, and put them on the airplane. I've been flying around. I've had one rivet leak that I repaired, drilled out the rivet, and with a camera and sucked up the tail of the rivet and the shavings that it drilled out, and drove it back in, and it's been fine. And then now it started leaking, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm like, this is a more substantial leak than a rivet. And so I've decided to call this company called SWAT, and all they do is repair fuel leaks in airplane wings. That's it. That's all they do. And I call them up. I'm like, listen, this is how I'm thinking about this, and I just want to see if this is accurate. I'm like, I feel like repairing fuel tank leaks is kind of like drywall.
Ooh.
I could do it myself. It's not going to look great. It's never going to be as good as the person that does drywall all the time. And the guy laughed. He goes, I've never heard anyone say it, but that's a really good comparison. He goes, yeah, it's certainly there's an art to it. I said, okay, because I don't want to mess around. I mean, to repair it, you got to drill out, defuel it, drill out rivets of inspection covers. It's a whole thing. And the worst thing that could happen is I do all this, and then I put the inspection panel back on, which requires more fuel sealant, seal every rivet, the whole thing, and then you fill it up and it leaks again. Right? That's what I'm trying to avoid. And again, sometimes my own advice that I don't always heed to is I'm better off letting somebody repair this and reseal the fuel tank, and then going to fly a day trip or 2-day trips, whatever it takes. Right? So anyway, I'm in the middle of dealing with this, and now the area that needs to be repaired, there's 4 bays in the fuel tank between the ribs, and there's 2 inspection panels.
Quickly.
So 2 more inspection panels need to be put in. So I need to take my nice painted bottom of my aircraft wing and cut some 10 by 8 inch holes in it and make new inspection panels. So the pros can go in there and seal it. And I really don't want to do that because it's like 75 degrees out and not a cloud in the sky, and it's perfect to fly. And I hate this airplane sometimes, but then I love this airplane, and it's the worst. I've never been addicted to heroin or crack.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like
this is what
it must be like. I just paid the insurance bill.
Oh,
I'm just like, oh, what am I doing?
This is killing me. It's like going to prison.
But I love it. I do love it. It makes me happy.
Oh,
most of the time.
man. That's...
So anyway, that's the joys of aircraft ownership.
Yeah, that is great. Incredible. So can I assume that this SWAT fuel leak is going to be a sponsor of the show here pretty soon? Or is there going to be some type of horse trade here?
Probably going to be the worst.
I will do
They're
3
so nice
ad
too. They
reads.
feel so bad for me too because they can see how like emotionally draining it is for me. They're just like, oh man, I'm so sorry. But I'm like, don't be sorry, bro. I get it. I wanted to do it right the first time just to be done, but it just hurts. He's like, I know.
Devastating. Let's move on to some happier news.
Go ahead. What do you got?
Well, let's see. So we have a happy listener who wrote in a nice review of the show. Maybe we should read that. We love when listeners write in reviews. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative. We don't care. We'll send you a sticker either way. Shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com with your mailing address after you write us a review, and we'll send you some stickers. Myself and my younger son, I think, sent out like 10 different envelopes with stickers the other day for folks that have left reviews. So we had I do it like once a month. So it's kind of, we just let them pile up and then we go. So
Quickly.
This one is from Ozlaugh. The title is W Riz Pilots. Dylan and Max both give great advice as well as information while still giving me a few laughs every episode. This podcast has kept me entertained during my 2.5 hours of driving to flight school 4 times a week.
Oh my God.
Oh.
That's aggressive.
We need more. He goes on to say, we need more Ted, though. His perspective of being an IRO is critical to aviation as a whole. Without him, who will ever make the beds? Besides that, a 10 out of 10 podcast.
I know. We do need more. We haven't talked to Ted in a minute.
I would love to. It would be fun to video you explaining this fuel leak problem to Ted. I think he'd be fascinated by it. He'd really enjoy it. Maybe he'd have some suggestions for you, some troubleshooting advice. In Ted's younger days, we would have had to tell him to put a cigarette out close when he was near the airplane. We'd be like, Ted, put that out. There's a fuel leak right now.
Why?
Why? If you want to leave us a review, please do. We would love it. All right, on to the mailbag, Maxwell, which you know is, of course, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Aircrew Academy. Aircrewacademy.com is the website where you can check out all of the offerings they have for your flight department if you need to brush up on a range of topics.
If not required to by Part 135 or another federal aviation regulation.
Maybe you're feeling a little rusty. CPDLC, RVSM. Should I remember how the weather radar works? What about winter operations? You know, it's been a hot one.
A
hot one I've seen a lot of articles on lately, and I think our boy Dan Bodeheimer, who runs Advanced Aircrew Academy, he just gave a talk the other day at Safety Stand Down about runway excursions. Yeah, he came on our show several years ago and gave a great talk on that. I'll have a link in the show notes so you can check out that episode. But Advanced Aircrew Academy, an incredible partner for all of your aviation training needs.
All right, mailbag. Hey guys, I saw this gem today and thought you would appreciate it given the discussion on short sleeve pilot shirts that has come up from time to time. Keep up the great work, from Sam. And this is looks like a screenshot from the gram, right? Or X? Whatever. Some sort of social media.
X, yeah.
The short sleeve dress shirt, worn by the people who put a man on the moon, and then it disappeared forever. Powerful garment, America's toga. And it shows all the guys in mission control with ties on and short sleeve white button-up shirts, which is actually, that's funny. This just made me think of something that happened today, too. The captain's like, oh, I'll get the walk around. I'm like, oh, are you sure? I'm like, it's really cold out there. I'm like, do you have a coat? And he's like, and he grabs his long sleeve shirt. He goes, this thing's good for at least another 20 degrees. Turned and walked and did the walk around.
Wait, what do you mean he grabbed his long sleeve shirt? Like he
Like
put
he-
it
No,
over
he like
his short
he
sleeve?
had a long sleeve pilot shirt on. He
Oh.
like kind of pulled on it. He's like this baby's good for
Oh, so
at
he
least
was the
20
long
degrees.
sleeving.
Long sleever. Went out
Wow.
and braved the cold
Love it.
like a man.
Love that. All
Long
right.
sleeves do have benefits
Yeah, that's right.
beyond the UV protection, I guess.
That's it. Next email says, listening to Katie's air ambulance story of flying an attempted suicide patient reminded me of a story from my own career that I thought would be worth sharing. I was a helicopter air ambulance pilot for 7 years, and I thought I was Mr. Cool, trading inappropriate jokes with my med crew. The meat has a family, ? And laughing off our day-to-day experiences. That all changed one night when I finally found my breaking point listening to the play-by-play of a 5-year-old girl dying in the back of my helicopter. I put on a brave face and finished the flight, but for days afterwards, it was all I could think about. It consumed me. Eventually, I accepted that I wasn't going to be able to deal with this on my own and called one of the med crew that was on the flight to talk it out. I can't overstate how much it helped to talk about it with someone who was there and understood what it was I was going through. For the other air ambulance pilots out there, we've all seen some stuff, and when you finally find your breaking point, it's okay to admit that it's not okay. P.S. I started listening to your show when I was working that job, and after listening to an interview with Jim Dunn at FlexJet, I decided to send him an email. That was 2 years ago, and now I'm a captain on the Phenom. These days, the biggest tragedy I have to deal with is when the wrong bottle of wine shows up in the catering. Life is good. And that's from Alec. Well, I think we've mentioned before, thank you for the email, Alec. One of our really good friends also flew medevac, and same thing. I mean, just the stories you would hear and the fact that you're hearing it while you're working. It's a very weird scenario where you have to be at the height of your professionalism to complete the job that you're doing while something insane is going on in the back of the plane, usually in the middle of the night, and you're single pilot usually. I mean, that is like a really an untold stressor that you don't think about when you think about flying an airplane, you know?
Yeah, I don't know that they train you for that in ground school for that job.
Yeah.
No, listen.
But good perspective, and I agree, Alec. Thanks for the reminder that definitely reach out if folks.
Well,
need...
you know, it's interesting too. That kind of reminds me. Some of the flip side of that is like, you know, he was talking about a life and death scenario, right? Where like the real deal was happening. What about? And then there's all the other stories too of where like you get woken up and you have to be taxiing within 5 minutes, and it's this whole thing. And you go to pick up a patient that like stubbed their toe and gets on the airplane because they're scamming the system with like which could also be very disheartening, I think.
Yeah,
like the total other side, and you don't know what you're going to get, until you show up. So,
it's like when you I don't know if you've done med air recently, but I remember like you'd have an instructor come in, and it was the guys that were an EMT or somebody that had just been in the business for forever teach the class, and it's just like it's not that they're jaded in a bad way, but it's just like they've just seen so much. For some of those first responder healthcare people,
Well, that, or if you're in the, if you're in the military and you see, you see that kind of stuff that, humans are not normally supposed to see. Like you have to desensitize yourself to it to stay sane, or you won't make it. Like that. I was literally listening to a Special Forces guy today in a podcast explain how like you see homeless kids and terrible stuff, and if you won't be able to function if you don't figure out a way to block it out and desensitize yourself. So, but that being said, I don't think there's a way to truly 100% block that out.
No,
long term. Like at some point you have to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate Alec's point in writing in. It's like, look,
it is good. Got to talk to somebody.
Absolutely. Shout out to all of the medevac and air ambulance pilots out there. That is incredible task you have in front of you. Next email. Go ahead, Maxwell.
Hi, guys. Just got done listening to episode 144 and had a couple of things to mention. When I worked at Flight Safety in the 280 program, I was lucky enough to go through EVAS training with a client. EVAS is the Emergency Vision Assurance System and gives you a clear-ish view of your instruments as well as through the windshield. In the course, they pump theater smoke into the sim. You don your mask and goggles and establish communication, but but you pull out this little box and set up the inflatable device. It's a bit cumbersome until you've had some practice, but way better than the alternative. We were vectored under the ILS and we were able to get it down, even though we could barely see each other. Regardless whether or not you have EVAS, the training brought up a good point. You're probably quick with punching an airport and approaching to the FMS, but you should also be able to memorize the location of certain key switches and knobs on the flight deck. Is the dump switch 2 over from the right, or is that the ditch switch, or is it the first covered switch on the far right? I'll let Max answer that from memory.
Ooh.
The dump switch is on the right. The covered switch on the right. I'll check after this email. About the OODA loop. I've referenced the OODA loop in nearly every primary check ride. For some reason, I could never bring myself to memorize the decide model. I flat out refused to do it because I felt like it was too long. But then a DP would invariably ask me, tell me about the decide model. And I always reply, sure thing. I can do that. But have you heard of the OODA loop? Oh, you haven't. And I go to tell them about Colonel Boyd and how the OODA loop is essentially the decide model on steroids. Then they just move on to the next question. Love it, Mike. Dude, have you done that the smoke in the cockpit, like the real deal smoke?
Yeah, it's great. I think we talked about it in a previous episode. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's amazing. Geez. And like I said before, like, is the crew even going to be able to communicate? Are they going to hit the right switches to be able to talk through the mask? There's just a million different things. And for people that don't know what EVAS is, I've never seen one, but essentially it's like this big inflatable thing. And you're basically, think of like a clear balloon, and you're sort of like pressing your eyes up against this balloon that's sitting up against the instrument panel so no smoke can get in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. That's the technology. It's not...
Huh.
It's not like some electronics thing. It's just, let's make some clear pathway for you to be able to see outside and see the instruments. And so they like inflate this thing.
Where do you put this device?
Basically between you and the instruments. You have to like...
No, but when it's not in use, where do you store it? Like, is it big?
No, it's inflatable, so it's probably pretty small. I mean, if only there was some sort of website that the person would have included. Oh, never mind. They did.
I'm on it right now, you cheese nut. Look. Trying to get a grasp on what we're dealing with here.
Let's see if they have a picture of it. This is riveting radio. People are just at the edge of their seats right now. Yeah.
Scrolling through the internet.
As we're scrolling through this thing. Anyways, yeah, it's just like this big inflatable thing that so you can like press it against your eyes and the instruments, and then you could see through it because there's no smoke. It's genius. I'm assuming it's like right by your smoke goggles, depending on the airplane. It's probably not very big.
That's what she said.
Okay.
Anyway, moving
next
on. Go ahead.
Email. Hi guys, longtime listener. First or second time caller, big fan of the podcast. I don't know if you guys are aware, but in the last few weeks, the infamous Frank Lorenzo has published his own autobiography entitled Flying for Peanuts. I did everything in my power to get this book for free, even through my library, but was unsuccessful. I feel dirty even saying this, but I paid to buy this book. It is a deep dive into his entire airline career, and in my opinion, it is a feeble attempt by himself to whitewash his poor legacy at the age of 84. It is very detailed and very insightful, but amazingly, he even tries to come off as pro-labor and a victim of the press and the unions, which is ludicrous.
The victim.
Yeah. He was pretty forward. He was a pretty forward thinker, however. The industry, as we see it today, with a lot of consolidation, a lot of pricing power, was essentially what he envisioned in 1978 when deregulation happened. He have definitely had the foresight to see what was coming, but just went about it in a very hostile manner. I don't know any of the Northwest, Delta, or United Continental merger books, but there is one by Ted Reed titled American Airlines and U.S. Airways and the Creation of the World's Largest Airline. This one takes a really deep dive into that merger, including the America West aspect. Again, another very important read for airline pilots to understand what's going on the other side. Finally, I'll leave you with one more book, 12 Years of Turbulence by Gary Kennedy. Gary was the head lawyer for American Airlines from 2001 to 2012 or so, and was at the table for all major pilot negotiations and the merger with U.S. Airways. TWA stuff was mentioned as well. At times, a lot of what he says makes a ton of sense, but at other times you can see underlinings of a lot of distaste towards labor and airline pilots as well. So the 3 recommendations are Flying for Peanuts by Frank Lorenzo, American Airlines and U.S. Airways, and the Creation of the World's Largest Airline by Ted Reed, and 12 Years of Turbulence by Gary Kennedy. These books are literally management playbooks, and I think it is important for all labor, not just for pilots, to read these and have an understanding of what management is trying to accomplish on the other side of the table to understand their tactics. These great books are great companion pieces to Hard Landing or completely on their own. He goes on to say, I first read Hard Landing when I was an intern at Southwest in 2002. They used to give a copy to every new hire. I don't know if they still continue that practice, but it was to give all the Southwest new hires perspective on what was really going on in the industry and how Southwest emerged very strong. All the best, and sorry for the long email, but I would definitely recommend you at least share the titles of the book, which we did. And Justin goes on to say he very much enjoys the pod and have even talked with one of my best friends from college about doing something similar, but we're just way too lazy. Keep it up, guys.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Buy an airplane instead.
Yeah, buy an airplane,
Equally
Justin,
rewarding.
instead. Yeah.
You see this? Look, I looked it up.
What do we look
See
at?
the dump switch?
Oh, yeah.
I was right.
Were you right?
Mm-hmm. We would have lived.
Good for you. There you go.
Good for you.
You're home for G280 cockpit layout information, the 21.5 podcast. Turn to us.
Yes.
For all of your
one-stop shop
needs.
over here.
That's right. All right, last email. Go ahead, Max. Short one for you.
Hey, guys. Flight Safety Wilmington has smoke in the cockpit for the Challenger 300 350 sim from John. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I had like a 10-paragraph email, and then you had a 2-sentence one. Who picked these out?
Listen.
All great emails. We learned a lot about smoke in the cockpit today, I think. That was the takeaway. I'll tell you what, the book I want to read the most, just because I was close to it, is that American Airlines and U.S. Airways merger one. Because I was in the middle of that. Like, not as an employee of either company, but like commuting on both of those airlines to work. And
you and Ted should read that because he was an original U.S. Airways hire. And so you guys can talk about all that fun stuff. How all the pilots just really got together and held hands, sing Kumbaya together.
A lot of unity there. Wow. Great emails from everybody. Thank you so much for writing in. info@215podcast.com is the email address if you want to get involved in the conversation. Love to hear from our folks. Okay. Max, I got to tell you about our friends at Harvey Watt. You know why? Because they were our original sponsor of the show. Before anyone else, Harvey Watt said, these two morons who talk about happy hours at the Embassy Suites, video games with their kids, don't even know what an EVAS system is. These dudes, they can podcast, and we believe in them. So a big shout out to Harvey Watt. It's been, I think, 5 years they've had our backs. And guess what? They also have the backs of 77,000 professional pilots around the globe, protecting all of those men and women in the cockpit from the loss of medical. 66% of pilots will go out on a long-term medical at some point in their career. You better make sure the cheddar's still flowing, because guess what? Those fuel leaks on your airplane, they ain't cheap.
Leave it alone.
Yeah, you need that income to come in there to keep paying the bills. Harvey Watt can take care of that for you. Even if your union covers your loss of medical insurance, chat with them. See where the holes are. See what additional coverage you need to check out. HarveyWatt.com. On to flight advice, Max. Here we go. Hey guys, love the podcast. I just turned 20 and have 190 hours, almost to commercial, in CFI. The dilemma I have, whether or not I should do a summer internship with a major airline as I am getting my business degree and in my junior year. Unable to get restricted ATP. The reason why I'm debating this is because I'm looking to build enough hours to go directly to a major by the time I'm 23. And with talking with the owner of the flight school I'm at, and I'm going to work for, says it'd be more important to focus on requirements for hours and quality of flying rather than a whole summer that I'd not be able to fly. Thank you. And that is from Will. And stats below, not super important, as you would assume, early 20s. Just getting started. So the question is, Max, do the internship or try and get to become a CFI as quickly as possible?
Well, I think if you want to be an airline pilot by the time you're 23, I think that the internship, especially if you've identified the specific airline you want to go to, or there's an airline that fits with where you live, like he says he lives in Modesto, which is 2 hours from SFO, SAC, or Fresno. So SFO would be or Oakland, I suppose, too, right? Would be the main players there. But I think if you have an airline specifically that you're targeting and you want to live in Modesto still, or you have a base or a city that you want to live in that only that airline has, then I think that's a good insurance policy, because most of the time, I think unless you have a really good chance of getting hired if you were a former intern, is pretty universal in this business. And the other thing too is that, you want to be to a major by the time you're 23. Well, let me give you a newsflash. That is not normal. That has not happened. That's a thing of very recent history. I mean, he's only 20, so that's was not, and probably right now is not, a realistic expectation. And so I think you need to. It could be one of those things where this job becomes very competitive again, and you have to have any edge you can have to set yourself apart from everybody else who's been a CFI and a regional airline pilot or whatever. And that's where the internship will really come in handy. What do you think?
Oh, 100% agree. Your window of opportunity in your life to be an intern is like, what is it, 3 years, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not much.
Maybe. Like, there's not, like, you can't go back when you're 28 and be like, I'm going to go back and do that internship now. There is a tiny, tiny window of time where you can do that. I would do the internship. You can always go get your CFI. Having that in your back pocket at a major airline. Now, if you would have said a regional airline, I would have said no. But a major, I think it's definitely worth doing. And the side benefit is you'll get to see a little bit more about the company and the operation, and you might see it and go, you know what? Maybe that's actually not what I want to do.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with me.
Yeah.
Like, I did an internship at an airline that I decided I didn't really want to work for. So,
yep. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's great. It was great experience. I learned a ton. I got some cheap credit hours too. It was much more cost effective per credit hour than going to summer school.
Outside the cockpit experience, James hammers on this all the time. These are the types of things that are going to help you stand out. Because guess what? There are thousands of people with their CFI right now that are going to be applying for jobs that you're going to be competing with at some point to get a job at a major or a regional. You're going to stand out as an intern. So I would definitely do that. And I can tell you now, I can actually give you the other side of the coin, the experience that I had. I was in your exact same situation. I graduated Embry-Riddle. It was the summer after graduation. I was just finishing up my CFI. And my friends at Alaska Airlines called me in August. And they're like, hey, you want to come be an intern in the fall? And I also had a job offer to be a CFI at the exact same time. And I was like, I don't know what to do here. And I actually chose the other route, and I did the CFI thing. And it worked out for me, and I'm glad I did it. But my life would have been, honestly, it's one of, I think, the most pivotal decisions in my life from a career standpoint. Because had I done that internship, I would have made a lot of career choices based on me meeting the minimum, their internship hiring minimums later on in my career, right? Which would have been different than the path that I took. So I think it actually is a pretty big decision. And all being said, I think if you got the opportunity, go for it.
Yeah, but a similar thing that I always remember is I passed up a really great opportunity to take a Seminole with one of my best friends to Oshkosh for I just got selected for it, and I decided to leave for a regional airline because the seniority I thought was more important, for like 1 or 2 classes or whatever. If I had that decision to do over again, I would have gone to Oshkosh 10 out of 10 times, because that's the stuff you remember, is these like experiences when you're early in your career and things like that. And so I think we always say, from a couple of dudes that are getting old, go for the experience, the hours and the seniority, all that stuff will come. It's not, and if you're trying to be at the major by the time you're 23, you're already in a hurry. So smell the roses. Do something different.
I wouldn't stress out if you don't make that goal. That's if you've been listening to the show long enough, you know that there's too much that's out of your control. Most of it's timing, and you may or may not make that. Best of luck, but don't beat yourself up if you're 23 and a half when you get hired. That is going to do it for flight advice. If you've got a question for Max and I, we'll be happy to address it. All you need to do is address your web browser to 215podcast.com. We have the anonymous form on the website. You can click fill out and shoot it in. We'll take a look and do our best to help you out, or bring in a diamond dog if needed to assist, and try and give you our perspective, at least, which is worth exactly what you paid for it. That's right. I think that's going to do it, Max. It's time for you. You got to go to bed. You got an early show.
Yeah,
we got a lot going on.
I got to wind down. I got to start reading my book so I can convince myself I need to go to sleep very early.
That's good. Jedi mind trick yourself to sleep in the embassy suites.
I got a system.
It's a whole system. That is going to do it for episode 148 of the 21.5 Show, the show for professional pilots, fueled by pilots around the globe. Thanks so much for all of the listener feedback, reviews, emails, and
what are we going to do for episode 200? Can we do it live from like a seaplane training base? We have to do something.
That'd be cool.
I need a carrot. I need you to dangle something.
All right. I'll think about that. You know what?
I'd love where we're getting our seaplane ratings, or just something.
The Alaska Floats and Skis Lodge.
I need
next summer. Alaska Skis and Floats Lodge.
Do the math on that. That's not going to work, is it?
I don't know if there's any way to know.
Right. Oh, the hell. Let me do some quick math. So we release an episode every week, right?
Okay.
There's 52 weeks in a year.
All right.
You said 147. So that's almost exactly 1 year.
1 year.
Take a little vacation in there,
Yeah.
So that would put us in the winter in Alaska for a seaplane rating. I don't think that'll work.
It could be a problem. Good news is aircraft availability could be pretty good.
No, we could go fly on skis.
Yeah. I said floats and skis. I didn't say which one. I said floats or skis.
Figure something out.
You thought I said seaplane. I said ski plane.
Clever.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks to all of our sponsors. What was it? SWAT Fuel Leak Company?
Listen.
Alaska Floats and Skis. Any other future
I got to get some credit for a
from?
sponsorship from SWAT Fuel Tank Leaks.
Whatever it's called.
You have to call the SWAT team when I take hostages and I'm holed up in a freaking
right
hotel room.
The SWAT team is going to have to talk you off the you're going to be jumping off a bridge soon. Is what the SWAT team is going to be called in for. I can't take it anymore.
Dude, I defueled it into 5-gallon gas cans, and you can't leave those at your hangar. So I'm driving around with 25 gallons of avgas in the back of my truck, and now it's in my garage.
Like Santa Claus just stopping by everybody, all your buddies'
hoping
hangars.
I don't get rear-ended.
Does anyone want some
what would you say at my funeral if I died in a fire of avgas in my back of my truck?
Here's what I said, Max. Everybody knew the quick build wing kit wasn't pressure tested, and you did it anyways.
Exactly what he loved. Driving around with fucking avgas in the back of his pickup truck like an idiot.
$1,100 worth of avgas.
You already fly 2 airplanes for your job. Isn't that enough? You got to torture yourself? Idiot. That's it. I'm getting into powered parachutes.
That's it. Call Joel right now. Where is it? We're going to get out of this. Wouldn't it be funny if we did like here's what I want to do for the 200th episode. We'll do a check-in with Joel, and he'll be like a PC-12 pilot somewhere. It'll be great. I fly my powered parachute.
No, he won't. He'll be riding on the fender of another tractor doing
plane
coming to you live from Western Ohio.
The cheese tasting show.
All
right.
on Joel. What's it? Where's he at? What's
I feel embarrassed. I don't think the sponsors want us to recognize them now. They're probably like, what just happened here? Thank you so much to the sponsors, Advanced Aircrew Academy, Timothy P. Pope, Harvey Watt, Veris Jet Sales, the Air Comp Calculator. Oh, our friends at Pro Pilot World who have been supporting us from the beginning and always provide us with great content too. I love cruising through the website there. Anything else? Any last final shout outs, Max? No? The 100 low lead fuel tank provider?
No more. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Got to get out of this. All right. Well,
never speak of this again.
Until we get to episode 200, remember.
Flexibility is the key to air power.
It's the key to aircraft ownership.
Financial flexibility is the key to aircraft ownership. Maintain a loose grip on your shickles. That is all I will say.
Significant amounts of disposable income are the key. What does Roy say about it? He said, if you sit down, if you want to own an airplane and you sit down with a spreadsheet, you're doomed already. The airplane costs what it costs. Costs what it costs. All right.
Is that what you tell the guy you fly for? It costs what it costs.
Costs what it costs, bro.
Listen, it is what it is.
Well, I flew for a guy that had a great saying. He goes, well, we bought the elephant. We can't choke on the cost of peanuts. That's one.
They've never had a fuel leak, obviously.
You've never dealt with a fuel leak in municipality.
You obviously never dealt with a fuel leak, idiot.
All right, we got to go. Bye.
All right.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employees.